The moment we walked into the restaurant on that family trip, the host pointed and said, "Your seat is right this way," and led me to a tiny two-top by the restrooms. He pointed with his finger. Direct. Final. A small square table pressed against the wall, close enough to the swinging door that I could hear the hand dryer blow. 5 minutes later, the buzz at the main table went dead silent. The manager came over, set down a long invoice, and told them the organizer had covered the entire bill approx. US $13,900 and left without a word. My name is Emily Stone. I'm 33. I manage a small office for a mid-sized firm on the edge of the city. That's my title. That's the job that keeps the lights on. In 2022, I got married. I met Mark through a college friend. He was steady, gentle. He listened when I talked. When we were dating, I would sit across from him and feel my shoulders drop. I thought, I can do life with this man. I thought, with him, I can rest. I won't pretend there wasn't a part of me looking for rescue in that word, marriage. My mom died when I was young. My dad worked out of state for years at a time. Home never felt like a place I could touch. It was a suitcase. It was a porch light that flickered on and off. So when marriage came, it felt like choosing a home for the first time. Choosing a place to belong. Choosing a name. Choosing a table. But that was a dream I held alone. The first 3 months after the wedding, we moved in with Mark's parents. It was the practical choice. 2 jobs, 1 city, rent too high, savings not where we wanted. "We'll stay with my folks for a while," Mark said. "Just until we're on our feet." I told myself I understood. The first breakfast told me I didn't. "Ms. Stone, could you heat the oatmeal a little more?" It took me a second to realize she meant me, not Emily, not Sweetie, Ms. Stone. Mark's mother, Linda, never used my first name. Not once. From that first morning to the last night under that roof, I was Ms. Stone. Like I was a teacher who showed up to supervise a classroom I didn't belong to. Inside those walls, I became the lodger without a name. I made dinner and heard, "It's fine." I did the laundry and heard, "That's not how I fold." Frank, my father-in-law, turned the TV up 3 notches when I walked in the room. He'd say, loud and sure, "Young women should be out there working. House stuff is the wife's job anyway." He meant it like a truth carved in old wood. When I tried to talk, Mark would look at me and say, "I'm sorry. I know it's a lot. Give it time. You'll get used to it." He didn't ask what that getting used to would cost me. He didn't see how each day shaved off a thin piece of who I was. My only corner was a small desk in the back of the bedroom. That was my space. My letters with my name. My stack of work folders. Sometimes I would sit there and stare at my name on an envelope. Emily Stone. Proof in ink. Not a ghost. Not a shadow. I would ask myself, have I ever been treated as myself in this house? Not once. Not really. Every week I did the grocery run. I checked the fridge. I wrote the list. I clipped digital coupons on my phone. I organized it in a budgeting app. No one said thank you. If anything, Linda said, "There's a cheaper store across town." Why didn't you go there? One afternoon, we were both in the kitchen. She dried a dish. I wiped the counter. Quiet air between us. "Next weekend we're having the relatives over," she said. "I'll need your help with the food." "Sure," I said. "What do you need?" "And be mindful about where you sit," she added. "This is the family table. Can you take a seat in the back? It just looks better that way." I paused for 1 beat. Just one. Then I said, "Okay, that's fine." But it wasn't fine. It was surrender. And in that moment, I didn't have another word. Because in that house, I was the outside person. The extra chair. The afterthought. That night, in the safety of the bedroom, I asked Mark, "Do you think of me as family?" He gave me that strained smile people use when they're trying to stay calm. "Of course," he said. "My folks are a little old school. Try not to let it get to you. I'm on your side." On my side? Then where were you when I was told to sit in the back? Where was your voice? The questions rose and burned and fell. I swallowed them. They cooled and sat like stones. Alone at the desk, I asked a harder thing. When did this marriage go wrong? Was it me? If I were stronger, softer, quieter, if I just accepted what came, would that make us right? But then another voice in me spoke plain. Becoming a family isn't a one-sided job. It's not a test the woman has to pass by standing still and smiling. Not long after, Linda announced, "We're taking a trip. All of us. Summer in New Orleans. We go every year. Mark knows. We'll handle the hotel and the meals. You just handle the confirmations. Text everyone the details." I smiled and nodded. Sure, I can do that. By then, I had decided. This story is ending. This isn't my story anymore. Emily Stone. Yes, I started out as someone else's stranger. But from here forward, I live by the name I choose. I live by the voice I carry. That was my decision. Summer in New Orleans is thick and green. The air hums. You can smell heat and river and something sweet on the breeze. We planned 3 days. The French Quarter, a historic hotel, the one with iron balconies and old mirrors. When Mark told me his family did this trip every year, I felt a flicker of gladness. Maybe, I thought, I'm finally being folded into something. Maybe, at last, there will be a place for me at the table. I made the calls. I confirmed the rooms. I confirmed a lunch reservation at that famous place in the quarter. The one people talk about in magazines. I sent the schedule in the family group text. Replies came back. Got it. Thanks. No jokes. No banter. No warmth. Just the words you'd send to an office coordinator who booked the conference room. We met up at the airport and took a shuttle to the hotel. I carried the bags of gifts I was told to bring, tins of cookies, little jars of jam from our city. On the shuttle, Linda held court. She talked about the heat. She talked about the plan. Mark played on his phone. I sat with my hands folded and watched the streets go by. I thought, who am I with right now? Are these my people? Is this my family? That first night, after we checked in, Linda called me into the adjoining room. She sat with a glossy brochure in her lap. She spoke softly, but each word landed hard. About tomorrow's lunch, she said. Thank you for confirming the reservation. There's one more thing. Yes? I said. I sat straighter without meaning to. We have relatives coming. We want the family to sit together. The photographs matter. For appearances. She lifted her eyes and met mine, steady. So, I'd like you to sit at a separate table. Just a little ways off. Is that okay? The room went quiet in my head. A separate table? I asked. Yes, she said. I know it's inconvenient. But you understand. For appearances, I went back to our room. Mark had the TV on low. Did you know about the seating? I asked. He glanced away, then back. He shrugged in that light way people use when they want to keep waters calm. Yeah, Mom mentioned it. It's just one meal. Don't overthink it. There's no bad intent. What should I feel? I asked. Tell me how to feel about being told to sit away from the family at the family lunch. It's just lunch, he said. It'll be over in an hour. Let it go. I didn't have words after that. I understood something then. He chose quiet over me. He chose peace at the big table over a seat beside me at the small one. Here is where all the threads pull together. The next day, the sun hit the balconies and set the iron shining. We walked into the restaurant through a cool doorway. The host stood straight with a leather book in hand. He looked at the list, then at me and said, "Your seat is right here." He pointed with a finger. A small table by the restrooms, not far from the swinging door. You could hear laughter and forks and the soft roar of conversation from the main room. He led me like a single file of one. I sat. I folded the napkin in my lap. The door swung. The hand dryer blew. The main table across the room filled with voices I knew. I had arranged this lunch weeks before. I had called. I had confirmed. I had spoken with the manager privately. I had asked for a separate check, for a private card on file. I had asked for the invoice to go to the main table, not mine. I had saved for months to make it possible. I had typed my name on the payment form and felt my hand steady as I did it. 5 minutes in, the hum in that big room faded. The manager walked to the head of their table. He set down a long, stapled invoice. He cleared his throat politely. He said, "The organizer has covered the entire bill approx. US 13,900, and asked me to let you know everything is taken care of." She stepped out. Then he nodded, a kind nod, and left them with the paper and the silence it brought. I did not stand up. I did not wave from my little table. I did not watch their faces. I picked up my bag, paid for my iced tea, and walked out into the heat. On the sidewalk, the air was alive. A trumpet lifted somewhere down the block. A woman laughed on a balcony. A boy chased a bubble that floated and popped and shimmered while it lasted. I stood there and breathed. I thought about the desk in the bedroom, the letters addressed to me. I thought about the groceries, the lists, the coupons, the thank yous that never came. I thought about names, about how Linda never once said Emily, about how I had been asked to sit in the back, over and over, with a smile. I am not the back row. I am not the silence at the edge of the room. I walked to the corner, turned, and kept going. I did not text an apology. I did not explain a single thing. I had spent months explaining. I had spent years softening myself into shapes that fit their chairs. On the flight home, I sat by the window and watched clouds slide by like slow ships. I looked at my driver's license and my wallet. Emily Stone. I ran my thumb along the raised letters. I chose that name. I will keep it. I will live by it. When I got back to our city, I packed. I took the desk. The envelopes with my name on them. A small lamp that threw warm light. I left a note. It said simply, "I need a home where my name is said in kindness." Sometimes a story ends at a table. Sometimes it ends when you finally stand up. Sometimes it ends when a manager sets down an invoice and tells a room full of people that the organizer took care of everything and left without a word. I did not disappear. I began. There was a moment when it clicked clear as day. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay there in the glow of my phone, thumbing through old messages, not really reading, just moving my hands so my mind wouldn't spiral. I opened a folder I almost never open, Mom's emails. She's been gone a long time. But I keep those words like, I keep the light on the porch. You don't need it every night. But when you do, you're grateful it's there. In one of those emails, simple and steady, she wrote, "If you're ever in a place where you feel like you don't have a single person on your side, that place is going to hurt you." I read it twice. Then I read it a third time. I heard her voice in those lines. Calm. No drama. Just a truth polished by living. I knew I needed that truth for the next day. Our reservation time came, right on the dot. The famous restaurant in the quarter, the one with the old mirrors and the iron balconies and the private rooms behind heavy doors. People take pictures at the front. People book anniversaries and baptisms and big deals there. It's a place where stories get staged and sealed. I walked in alone. Out front, there were already black cars idling, drivers leaning on doors, hands in their pockets, eyes scanning for their people. I could see in the glass reflection that a few of Mark's relatives were arriving too. Suits, dresses, laughter that floats because the good part is still ahead. No one spoke to me. I felt that split-second sting you feel when you spot a group you technically belong to and know in your bones you don't. I let it pass. I kept moving. At the host stand, I gave my name in a voice that surprised me with its calm. The host glanced over the book, then up at me. He hesitated, almost like a flinch. He was a young man doing his job, but he understood the whole story in a blink. "This way," he said, polite and practiced. "We have a seat for you right over here." He led me to a small table near a service door. A little Ford top tucked close to the wall, close enough to the swinging door that each push brushed my chair with a whisper of air. A place where servers passed with trays and plates and a full life of other people's celebrations. A place at the edge. I nodded, sat, unfolded the napkin in my lap. I smiled. I even looked down at my hands and smoothed the napkin like I was making something simple. Beautiful. I'm not sure who the smile was for. Maybe the room. Maybe the girl I used to be. Maybe no one at all. From behind the heavy door to the private room, voices carried. Clinking glasses, forks tapping plates, laughter in clear notes. The noise felt like a photo album flipped fast. Thank you for being here today. We've been looking forward to this. Those were Mark's people. His family. The ones who asked me to sit away from the family at the family lunch. 4 appearances. I touched the rim of my water glass and felt the condensation. Cold water. Warm room. A body full of heat, and a mind trying to stay cool. Wiping my hands doesn't wash any of this off, I thought. And it came like a small, sad joke. I told only to myself. A young server approached. Kind eyes. Professional posture. She knew there was more to the scene than what she could see. She asked me, careful and soft, "For the group in the private room, is there anything you'd like me to note? Any special instructions?" I heard Mom's line again. If you feel like no one is on your side, that place is going to hurt you. I set my glass down. Then I said, steady, yes. I'd like to cover the meal. Everything. The room fee. The courses. Tax. Gratuity. All of it. She blinked. Surprise, but no judgment. Of course, she said. I'll let the manager know. While she walked away, I slipped my hand into my bag and pulled out a small leather case. I opened it and took out a card. My card. The one I almost never hand out, the one only a handful of people have ever seen. Stone Hospitality, LLC owner. Emily Stone. It's a modest business. I filed the paperwork 3 years ago. Nights and weekends. One small event at a time. While I managed an office by day, I built this other thing by night. I sold tickets. I rented kitchens. I learned the language of permitting offices. I scrubbed pans at midnight when the last guest had gone and the music in the room had turned into the hum of the refrigerators. I read "delicious" and "I want to come again" on review pages and kept those. Lines like talismans. I saved emails from people who came alone to a table I set and walked away with a friend. I didn't tell Mark's family about any of it. Not because it was a secret shame, but because it was mine. It was the name I chose, the work I chose, the table I set with my own hands. A few minutes later, the manager came to the table. He had the presence of someone who has seen every kind of celebration and knows how to treat each one with dignity. He was careful with his words. He asked if he could go over the details. We confirmed the room, the courses, the wine. He went line by line so there would be no mistake. He said, the total for the private room and the full meal, including tax and gratuity, comes to approx. US $13,900. I nodded. The number felt like the cost of a decision I had already made, not a penalty, not a bargain. Just the price of drawing a line and saying, I was here. I handed him my card. Flea cards, actually, the one for payment. And my business card. He looked down and understood exactly what I meant to be understood. He didn't say a thing about it. He simply said, "Thank you, Ms. Stone. I'll take care of this right away." He walked away with the 2 cards. I sat for a breath and watched the room move, the servers walking fast and precise, the host glancing toward the private room, the tourists at a corner table pointing up at a chandelier and whispering, "On ports of B, anything in motion." I felt very still. When the manager returned, he bowed his head slightly in that old world way some people in his line of work still learn. "We'll let your party know right now," he said. "Please do," I answered. I stood. I picked up my bag. I left my business card on the small table. One card, centered. A name in print. Quiet but present. Just then, the door to the private room opened. The manager stepped in and spoke in that low, respectful tone good restaurants use to deliver news. I couldn't see faces. I didn't lean to peek. I didn't want to. I heard plates. I heard a fork slip. I heard silence roll in like a wave and settle. "Excuse me," he was saying. "Regarding today's lunch and the private room, your organizer has already covered the entire bill." Everything is taken care of. Who? Someone asked. A man's voice, rough with surprise. Ms. Emily Stone, he said. I heard a piece of silverware strike a plate and bounce once on the floor. Then nothing. I was already across the threshold and into the warm air of the hallway. I walked toward the front. The entry was bright again. A couple stood waiting for a table, talking softly. The door swung to the sidewalk, and the sound of the city reached for me. Music down the street, wheels on pavement, voices floating through thick summer air. I didn't stay to see faces. I didn't wait for the rush of calls. I didn't want proof. It didn't need reaction. I wanted the one thing I could actually choose. I wanted out. I stepped outside and did not head back to the hotel. I turned away and went down a side street, toward a quieter block where the ironwork is heavy and the shadows are kind. There's a small church there. Not the famous cathedral by the square. Not the one in the guidebooks. Just a church with a brick courtyard and a black gate. A shallow set of stone steps. And a bench that has held 1,000 little pieces of other people's days. I slipped through the open gate and found the steps. I sat. I pulled the hem of my dress over my knees and folded it neatly like I was taking care of something small because the big things were too big for my hands that minute. And I remembered. 3 years back. Before the LLC. Before the forms. Before I had a bank account with a name I chose on it. I planned a small event. I was sure a dozen would come. 3 showed up. I smiled and welcomed them and did the whole thing like that. Was exactly how I planned it. When it was over, I stacked the chairs. I rolled the garbage to the back. I swept the floor of the rented room by myself with a broom that left a trail of dust, no matter how many times I went over the same line. I missed the bus and stood shivering at a stop almost at midnight, holding a paper cup of bitter coffee that steamed in the cold. I remember saying out loud to no one, "Why am I fighting so hard for this? I wish that woman could see me now." In 3 years, I have gotten behind a name and stood up. Not my in-law's name. Not my husband's title. Not anyone's referral or permission slip. Just the name I chose. What holds that name up are people and places I built with my own hands. Notes from guests who stayed late to help fold tables. Reviews that said, "Delicious," and I felt at ease, and I'll come back. The smell of a clean kitchen at 1 in the morning. Citrus and soap and something warm. The air settling after a rush. Those are my receipts. No one else has to know them by heart. I do. I know what I carried. I know what I earned. A breeze moved through the courtyard and rattled the leaves. A single dry leaf lifted, spun twice, and fell. I watched it, the way you watch a tiny thing that puts you back in your body. I reached into my bag and took out the little card case again. There were a few stone hospitality cards left, more than I needed. Fewer than I once had. I ran my thumb along the raised letters. I thought about the card I left on that table. Maybe it rattled something in that room. Maybe it didn't. Maybe it only placed my name exactly where it needed to be. Placed, visible, plain, unashamed. What mattered wasn't the ripple. It was the naming. It was the act of standing in a place where I felt alone and saying, "I am here anyway," by the name I chose. My phone buzzed. Mark's name lit up the screen. I watched it pulse, then fade. It buzzed again. And again. More than once. More than twice. I looked at it the way you look at a car on a street you're not crossing. Then I said softly, and I think I said it to the girl on the bus stop and to the woman on those church steps and to the future me as well. Maybe it wasn't that I wasn't invited to the table. Maybe I just hadn't chosen my place. I stood. I turned toward the corner and walked. The choice to not go back was lighter than I ever imagined it would be. I thought it would be heavy, like dragging an anchor. Instead, it felt like setting something down that had been cutting into my hands for too long. I passed the restaurant on the far side of the street. Through the windows, I could hear the hum rising again, laughter finding its balance. Forks meeting plates. The story in that room went on without me, because it was never my story to keep. That wasn't my world. I am not the punchline. I am not the extra chair someone drags over at the last minute and pretends. Planned there all along. I have my own table, my own chair, my own name. Night drifted down over the quarter. Street lamps lit the sidewalk in circles of soft gold. My shadow stretched and moved in those pools of light, then disappeared, then reappeared. Steady. It didn't overlap with anyone else. It drew its own outline. That was the proof I needed. At the airport, I sat at the gate with a paper cup of water and my carry-on, tucked under my knees. Announcements came and went. People scrolled and snacked and made the small sighing sounds travelers make when they're almost out of the day. I checked my phone. Missed calls stacked, 5 and counting. A string of texts I didn't open. I watched the numbers rise and felt nothing but a quiet steadiness, like a lake at dawn. I didn't call back. I didn't read. I pressed the button and let the screen go dark. What I wanted wasn't a reason, or an apology, or a debate. What I wanted was quiet. And in that quiet, my mother's lines settled into place again, not as a warning this time, but as a guide. If you're ever in a place where you feel like you don't have a single person on your side, that place is going to hurt you. So you leave the room. You step into the air. You find the bench with your name on it, even if it's only in your own handwriting. You sit there a moment. You stand up. And then you walk toward the life where your name is spoken in kindness, where your seat is at your own table, the one you chose and set and keep. Night. A hotel room. A small lamp throwing a soft circle of light. I poured myself a cup of tea from the little kettle by the sink. Steam lifted, carrying that warm, steady smell that says, "You're safe for a minute." I held the cup in both hands and let the heat soak into my fingers. It felt like the kind of quiet that wraps around who I am when no one else is looking. I said my name in my head, slow and clear. Emily Stone. Tonight, I thought, I might finally have become the version of me that isn't owned by anyone. Not a wife at someone's family table. Not a guest in someone else's story. Just Emily, with a cup of tea, in a room with one light on and the curtains drawn. Since I left that restaurant in New Orleans, I hadn't called Mark. I hadn't texted Linda or Frank. I hadn't reached for anyone on that side. Not once. I had nothing left to explain, and I didn't want their answers anyway. The hours that night slipped past like a long tide. Something inside me seemed to give way and fall quiet. Then the same something began to take a new shape. Neither loud nor dramatic. Just a steady rearranging. A click into place. Then another. I lay on the bed and listened to the air hum through the vent. I knew this was an ending. I also knew it was a beginning. There, in a room with an ice bucket and a chair I didn't choose, I chose myself. Morning came. I checked out. I rolled my suitcase across a lobby where no one knew me and back into a world where, all of a sudden, more people would. I flew home and went straight to the office. Not my day job office. Not the one where I managed calendars and chairs. My office. Stone Hospitality. Our small suite on the edge of the city, with a chalkboard wall and a table we refinished by hand. We had a morning check-in on the schedule, a tasting to prep for the weekend, a new brunch menu we wanted to test with a handful of regulars who tell us the truth and still send flowers. I walked in and hung my bag on the back of my chair like it was any other Tuesday. I took my spot at the head of the table where we meet, not because I wanted a head, but because someone had to put a hand on the wheel. "How was New Orleans, boss?" one of my team asked, light and curious, looking for the weather of my face. I smiled. "Beautiful," I said, quiet in its own way. There was a breeze by the river. I didn't need to say more. The fight was over and done where it needed to be inside me. No headlines, no scene, just a woman saying her name and choosing her chair. That quiet held for a day. For 2. Then, on the third morning, the phone line started to blink. A feature ran in the Wall Street Journal's regional business section. Southeast Focus. Small companies with real momentum. Our logo was there, simple and clean. A piece called, "A 30-something woman at the helm of a rising hospitality company. Fast growth across the Southeast." The subhead, "Stone Hospitality's founder outlines her leadership philosophy during a New Orleans visit." No photo of me. Just my name as the representative on the sidebar. Emily Stone. People read. People shared. People who knew pieces of me put the pieces in a new order and saw a picture they hadn't seen before. The first message came from Linda. Short. Tidily spelled. No greeting. I can't believe you're in that kind of position. If you'd told us one thing, anything, maybe it would have been different. I read it and felt something click. A small, precise sound. Like a latch releasing. If I'd told you one thing, you never once said my name. You can't talk to a room that refuses to hear. Words need ears. Without them, it's just a person moving their mouth at the wall. I drafted replies. I deleted them. I sat a while and let my hands be still. Then I sent one sentence. If you had truly seen me as family, you would have tried to learn who I am. No reply came back. Not that day. Not the next. The thread went dark, and it stayed dark. That was fine. Mark wrote too. My texts had sat on read for days. He shifted to email, like switching lanes would change the direction of the road. I know talking might not be possible, but I'd like to meet once. I want to choose again. Those last two words caught. Choose again. Like I'd been a sweater he tried on and hung back up for later. Like I was an item on a shelf. Like he got to be the only chooser in the room. Too late. Choices aren't rehearsals. They carry weight right where they land. That day in New Orleans, you chose the big table's piece over my small table seat. The clock won't run that back. Time doesn't exchange receipts. I didn't reply. I pressed delete and watched the message vanish from the inbox. Not from memory, but from the place where it asks for action. Then the vendors started calling. We saw the article. Didn't realize the founder was a woman. That's something. I'm surprised, in a good way. I answered each one kindly. I said thank you. I said we appreciate the support. I didn't apologize for surprising them, and I didn't perform pride either. Surprise is fine. It's a normal human thing. But I hadn't built this to be anyone's headline. I built it because I wanted a table where people could sit down and find ease. Because I wanted to see my name on a thing I made. Because I wanted to stand in the room I built with both feet on the floor. When I got back from a delivery run that afternoon, there was a small envelope sitting right in the middle of my desk. Handwritten. No return address. My office manager, Tasha, popped her head around the partition. From the restaurant in the quarter, she said. I was down there checking on our pop-up dates. The general manager asked if he could send this back with me. I slid it open with a butter knife we use for cake. Inside, on heavy paper with the restaurant's letterhead, someone had written by hand in a steady, old-fashioned script, "Thank you for the way you handled what you handled. Your quiet, your care, and your thoughtfulness left a mark on the entire staff present that day. Everyone who witnessed it learned something about the kind of people we hope to be in this industry." I stood at the window and read those lines again. A part of me, some small, sore place, finally understood what I'd done and why it mattered. I hadn't thrown a fit. I hadn't made a scene. I had simply placed my name where it needed to be seen and walked away. In that family, I had been the extra chair. The heir around the table. The Ms. Stone, who refilled the water and never earned a place card. All I did, at the end, was leave my name behind in plain sight and step out into the light. That was enough. That night, when the day's calls and emails were finally quiet, I took a little wind chime out of a drawer. It used to hang outside my grandmother's kitchen window. Brass and glass. Nothing big. Nothing fancy. I looped the string over the latch by our office window and cracked it open. A soft breeze came through. The chime sounded once. Clear. Small. Real, even if no one hears it. Even if no one writes a note. The fact that it rang does not vanish. The fact that I rang my name in a room that wouldn't say it. That remains. That is the weight of a single business card. By the third day after the article, media requests had become a stack. My inbox lined up with subject lines that said, "Young female CEO, hidden powerhouse, rising star of hotel life." Bold words, shiny, a little too bright for the light I wanted. I hovered over the keyboard, unsure. The truth is, there was a season when I hated handing my card to anyone. I dreaded the look, the double take, the rehearsed phrases. A woman's the CEO? So is this a family business? You're so young. Are you sure you're ready? Those aren't questions. They're quietly delivered limits. I met them again and again. So for a long time I let the work speak first. Let the food and the rooms and the way people felt at our tables carry the story. Let the softness in the lighting and the warmth in the welcome do the talking. Now, though, a single card did the job. It told the truth about where I stand, calmly, without fuss, without apology. Maybe that's what growth looks like, being able to hand your name to someone without flinching. Hey boss, Tasha called from the printer. Want me to order another run of business cards? Sounds like you'll be handing out more of them. Yes, I said. Order more. What about the design? Any changes? None, I said. Keep them exactly as they are. The color, the white space, everything. I love those cards, she said. Simple and clean. At lunch, the team chattered in the little kitchen. I stood just out of sight and listened as I rinsed an apple. I got goosebumps when I heard what she did, someone said. That kind of quiet pushback? I've never seen anything like it. She's gentle on the surface, Tasha said, but her core is steel. And she didn't even tell her family when she filed the LLC, another voice added. That's wild. That's someone who lets her work do the talking. I stayed behind the partition and smiled. I didn't add a word. I didn't need to. Thank you, I said in my head. The silence I chose has turned into your words. That's the best translation a person can hope for. Near the end of the day, the phone rang with a name I recognized. A young proprietor from an old-line restaurant we've partnered with off and on. Family business, third generation. Old wood floors that creak and a door that sticks when it rains. I read the article, she said. I'm not surprised. Not really. I've thought for a while now there was something deep under that calm voice of yours. It's not as dramatic as it sounds, I said. I just do the work. Oh, we're cooks, she said. We train our eyes. We learn to read people like we read a simmer. We know when someone's steady all the way through. I let myself absorb that, with no protest and no deflection. Thank you, I said. That's kind. Can I ask one thing? She said. Of course. Next time you're in New Orleans, would you make the reservation under your own name? I want to greet you by it. I want to say it right when you walk in. After we hung up, I sat a while without moving. The office had that late light, the one that turns paper gold and makes the dust in the air look like flecks of something finer. Down the hall, someone laughed, then hushed, then laughed again. The wind chime knocked twice and went quiet. I thought about first names again. How often they're used as a door into a person. How easily they are withheld when someone wants to keep you standing on the porch. Emily Stone. I am nobody's extra seat. I am nobody's unnamed helper. I am a person with a name on a door and a card in a pocket and a table I built. With both hands. The next morning would bring more messages, more requests. More of the good and the odd and the clumsy. That's part of it. That's life when you've been invisible and then you're not. But right then, in that long light, I only did one thing. I picked up a pen. I wrote my name on a sticky note. Not for anyone else. For me. Then I pressed it onto the inside of the top drawer where I keep the card case. A reminder. A sign. Not a whisper. Not a shout. Just the steady sound of a small chime by a window on a quiet night, saying, I am here. And I will keep ringing, whether anyone's listening or not. Being called by my right name? I didn't know it could feel this good. Not really. Not in my bones. With my in-laws, I was always Ms. Stone. Never Emily. Not a person with a seat and a voice and a center. Just an extra. A no-name attachment. A part that came with the set, but didn't come with a place. But now, Emily lives where people can see it. On a business card. On a door. On a note under a light. People read it. People say it out loud. People remember it. And they look at me when they do. That's proof I was here. that I'm here, that I'll keep being here. That night, I cracked a window in my apartment and let the cool air move the curtains. I poured a mug of chamomile and held it in both hands to feel the warmth settle into my palms. I said it softly to the quiet room. I've had it wrong for a long time. I thought not being invited to the table meant I'd lost. But I was wrong. Real freedom is having the strength to skip the tables where I don't want to be called at all. I opened my little leather card case. There were a few cards left. Not many. Enough. I wondered what my face would look like the next time I handed one across the counter. Proud? Bare and honest? Either one would be fine. Because either way, I won't bend myself smaller to fit somebody else's plans. I have decided that. Mark's calls kept coming. Phone, text, email. They stacked up, blue dots and red badges, waiting for a tap. I didn't open them. And my heart didn't race. It was strange how still I felt about it. Like a lake in the morning. One morning when I walked into our office, the front desk caught my eye. Our receptionist stood up, a little unsettled by something and trying to be steady anyway. "Ms. Stone," she said quietly. "There's a man here to see you." He says. "Well, he's waiting in the lobby." I knew before she finished. "My husband," I said. "No need to see him. We have a policy. No drop-ins for personal matters. I've already made that clear to him." She nodded. Understood. Behind her understood, I could see surprise. And respect. People who had once read me as soft-spoken woman owner had started to notice the other side of me since New Orleans. The side that draws a clean line and keeps it. That afternoon, a letter in a plain envelope landed on my desk. My name was written in careful, neat script. Inside, one piece of paper. Short. "Emily, I failed you that day. I stood still. I let it happen. I'm ashamed of that. I want to face what I did and what I didn't do. Would you meet me? Just once?" I read it and closed my eyes for a long breath. No rush of memory, no tears. I received the words the way you feel. Air settle in a room after someone closes a door. A few days passed. I decided to meet him. The night before, I couldn't fall asleep. I watched the phone light up and dim down. I checked the time, then checked it again. The minutes stacked like plates. Should I go? What good will it do? What will be different? Those questions rose and fell inside me like a tide. Quiet, insistent. At 2 a.m, I stepped out onto the balcony. The night breeze cooled my face. It cooled my thinking. I said it out loud, small. I'm not being asked for an answer. Maybe he wants forgiveness. Maybe he wants a verdict. But I don't want to be the judge. I don't want to be the victim either. I'm going to meet him to close a chapter and set the book back on the shelf. That thought let my lungs work again. The next morning, I picked simple clothes. A clean white shirt. A plain skirt. The kind of outfit that lets you be yourself without saying a word. Today, I told myself, I will not be anyone's wife. I will not be anyone's daughter. I will be just Emily Stone. I chose a neutral place. A cafe. A few blocks from the waterfront, bright windows, chairs that don't try to make you anything you're not. He arrived on the dot. Same kind of suit he always wore. He looked smaller to me somehow. Maybe I grew. Maybe he shrank. It didn't matter anymore which it was. "Hey," he said at last, after hesitating before meeting my eyes. "It's been a while." "It has," I said. "I read the article." He cleared his throat. I was impressed. "Thank you." I was shocked, honestly. I didn't know any of it. "Did you try to know?" I asked. He didn't answer. The silence between us said the truer thing. "What was I to you, Mark?" I asked. Not to trap him. Just to lay all the pieces on the table. "Family," he said. "You were family. You still are, in my mind." "Then tell me why I wasn't at the family table that day." He looked down. His hands folded, unfolded. "My mom. I was trying to manage it. I thought if I kept things calm, I could fix it." "You didn't say a word," I said. "You stayed quiet to avoid a splash. But to me, your quiet was the coldest thing." I wasn't angry in my voice. Just clear. He took a breath. A long one. Then, Can we try again? This time I'll be on your side. I swear it. In that moment, a thought moved across my mind like a line of sun on water. People choose at the moments that count. If they don't choose you then, that's the truth you need. It's not a rehearsal. It doesn't get restaged. That day in New Orleans, I covered the entire check, left my card, and walked away for one reason. Because I was done waiting to be chosen. I was choosing the end. With my own hands, on my own feet, not being chosen by you, I said gently. Finally, let me choose myself. His eyes dropped, then closed halfway, like a person bracing against something that had already happened and couldn't be undone. When we stood to leave, he asked one last thing. Are you happy, Emily? Now? I thought for a beat. Then I nodded. Yes. Very. I've learned to care less about whose side I'm standing on and more about how I'm standing. That day, the lesson carved itself into me so cleanly I knew it would hold. I don't have to shrink to be loved. I don't have to erase my name, my voice, or my shape to keep someone else comfortable. I am done waiting to be picked. From now on, I choose. A week later, I signed the divorce papers and filed them. After that, I took my wedding dress, the plain white one with the simple neckline and the little row of buttons down the back, and I sent it to the cleaners. I will never wear it again. But I want to fold it carefully and keep it safe, as a kind of thank you to the woman I was. She did her best with what she knew then. She deserves gentleness. Back at the company, we were gearing up for a new location. A small storefront we were turning into a bright, everyday place. Weekday coffee, weekend pop-ups, late afternoon classes. Even in the rush, even in the lists and the lumber and the paint, my favorite moment stayed the same. Morning, or opening. Good morning, one voice after another. Some soft, some strong, each one with my name tucked right behind it. Morning, Ms. Stone. Morning, Emily. Morning, boss. Do you hear it? People call me owner now. Founder. Boss. CEO, sometimes, even though the word still feels a size too big. But deeper than a title, what those words mean in my ear is, you belong here. You can take up space. One afternoon, I glanced at the card case on a shelf by my front window. The sun hit the leather in a warm square. I realized I was ready for the next page. My card wasn't something I hid behind anymore. It was a little light, a way of saying, I'm here if you need me. I'm here even if you don't. After the cafe conversation with Mark, I stepped outside and moved slowly down the sidewalk. The afternoon sun was soft and kind. No one watched me, no one needed to. The quiet itself felt like proof. I can be exactly who I am without an audience. I don't have to perform my leaving to make it count. I walked until I reached the waterfront park. Our city has one wide grass, a wooden boardwalk, gulls that make a racket on the pilings. The air carried a little salt, not heavy, just enough to tell you the water was close and living. I found a bench and sat. I took out my phone and opened the photos I almost never open. There we were, side by side in the old kitchen, both of us standing at the counter like a still life. Eggs. Flour. Light through blinds. There we were, in a hotel mirror, smiling the easy smiles of travelers who haven't yet learned what their return looks like. There we were, a cake on the table between us, a candle, a wish, all the right words in the right order. I looked at each picture and felt it for what it was, a kindness I offered myself back then, a soft lie I told because I needed something gentle to hold. That's all right. People survive by many means. Sometimes tenderness is a bridge, even if it won't last forever. I closed the photos and let my hands rest in my lap. The water moved in a slow rhythm. A dog barked once, then quieted. A runner's shoes tapped a steady line on the boards. Life does what life does. On my way home, I stopped by the office. The rooms were empty except for the late light. I stood by the window where the wind chime hangs and let the little bell sound once. Name, I thought. Card. Door. Seat. They are all the same thing when they're true. They say, you are here. The next morning, our receptionist passed me in the hall and said, Morning, Emily. She said it plain. Warm. Like she'd been saying it all her life. Being called by my name. Who knew it would feel like that small bell? Clear, honest, and enough. Later that week, I met with the team at the new space. We stood in a circle with dust on our shoes and hope on our faces. Someone handed me a marker. I wrote our opening date on a big calendar taped to the wall. Then I reached into my pocket, took out my card case, and slid one of my cards into a small frame we keep at the front desk. Not to announce anything. Not to prove anything. Just to place a name where it belongs. The card read, Stone Hospitality, LLC owner. Emily. Stone right name. In the right light. In the right place. That night, back home, I cracked the window again. The curtains lifted and settled. The air was cooler than the week before. Seasons turning. I made another cup of tea and held it the same way. Palms warm. Heart calmer than I'd ever known it to be. I said just to the room and to the woman I had been, and to the one I am now. I don't need a seat at a table that won't say my name. Then I set the cup down, turned off the lamp, and let the evening hold. Back then, I kept telling myself, I'm fine. I'm fine. But the truth was, nothing was fine. I closed the screen on my phone, set it softly on my lap, and I asked myself a hard thing. Is it wrong to not forgive? No answer came right away, but I knew one thing, as clear as a clean edge. I didn't meet him to be free of anger. I met him so I could end the story with him as someone separate from me. I met him to close the door. As two people, not as one. Some people find healing in forgiveness. But for me, the way out was different. Let go without forgetting. The afternoon light tilted. I stood. A breeze moved the hem of my skirt. In my card case, one card still waited. Who would get this next one? Maybe the person was future me. The me with less hesitation. The me with a steadier gaze. The me from tomorrow. When I got home, there was an envelope in the mailbox, a certified copy of the divorce decree. I looked at the print, the part that said, divorce final. No tears came. I just took a long breath, down deep. Air filling the bottom of my lungs. It smelled like freedom. That night, I wrote an email. One I didn't plan to send. No recipient entered. No subject line. To future me. If you ever feel ready to sit beside someone again, remember to ask yourself one question. Does that person call you by your name? There is nothing that breaks a life more quietly than living in a place where your name is never spoken. You have the right to live by your own name. Please, please don't forget that. I did not touch send. I closed the laptop. That was enough. The day the decree landed in my mailbox, I stopped by the coin laundromat before work. Because it was the day my marriage ended, I wanted to make something bright, clean, simple. I wanted to watch something turn white again. I fed a bag full of linens and sheets into a front loader, slid in quarters, pushed the metal tray, and took a seat on the bench. I watched the drum spin. Round and round. Soap and water, light and motion, and a quiet kind of thinking. This isn't loss, I thought. This is me taking back my empty space. At the office, the team greeted me the way they always do. Good morning. Same words as any other day. But that morning, their sound carried warmer. After months of living where no one said my first name, simple greetings felt like sun on my skin. At lunch, we ran a meeting. Ideas for a new project came one after another. Bright, rough, real. I listened and felt a sudden thought rise. Here, there isn't a top and a bottom. No one gets pushed to the back row. Everyone stands in their role. Clean. Seen. I felt a deep ease settle in me. I was standing in a place that didn't shrink me. Finally. That weekend, I drove out alone to the mountains. Blue Ridge, a few hours away. There's an old historic house on a ridge there. Tall windows, wood floors that remember footfalls. A place with ceilings that make your breath stretch. I went to look for ideas. We were sketching our fifth location. A neighborhood townhouse restaurant with a narrow footprint, big on warmth, small on fuss. When I stepped into a room with a high ceiling, my chest tightened, a sudden grip, like a hand closing. A memory moved across my mind. A family trip long ago. A room with a ceiling like this? We stood under it as if our voices might echo forever. Even if we never said the words we needed to say. I didn't want to remember. But memories don't wait for permission. They return like a draft through a gap in the window. I walked to the glass, placed my palm gently on the cool pane, breathed in, out. Let the ache pass through, not stick. On the way home, I stopped at a cafe, sat at the counter. The barista smiled with a kind face. Just you today? Yes, I said. Just me. We get a lot of folks who come solo, she said. They like it. Sit anywhere takes the pressure off. I laughed before I meant to. That's exactly right. The freedom to sit anywhere. For me, it's more than convenience. It's strength. It's how you walk past, a past where no seat called your name. When I got back to my place, there was a box by the door. Brown cardboard. A tidy satin ribbon tied around it. No return address. But I knew who it was from. Inside, tissue paper rustled. On top lay the satin sash from my wedding dress. Under it, an envelope I'd never been handed before. A letter from Linda. I sat on the step and broke the seal. I now understand that when you stayed quiet, it was because I wasn't willing to listen. Even so, I wish you hadn't left without a word. I regret never once saying your first name out loud. I folded it back into the envelope, tucked the whole thing into the back of a drawer. Regret doesn't heal me. My kindness, right now, is to put those words where they can't keep tugging at me. They belong to a life that is no longer mine. Night settled. I lifted the fallboard on a piano I bought secondhand years ago. I hadn't touched it in months. In high school, before my mother died, we played one piece together over and over. Debussy's Clair de Lune. My fingers shook, but sound came anyway. Soft? True enough. While the notes fell, I thought, I don't have to put on a show for anyone. It's enough that I can make this sound, here, tonight. I'm allowed to live for me. Sunday morning. Light through the curtains, soft and square. Time moved slow, like it was resting its feet. I cracked eggs into a pan. Looked out the window. Across the way, two kids lined up little chairs on a patch of lawn for a game of house. A girl with a ponytail pointed, whispering like she held something sacred. This one's Mom's seat. This one's Dad's. And this one is mine. For no reason I could name, my eyes filled. To point at your seat and say your name? Maybe that's the first real choice in a life. Maybe it's the start of dignity. In the afternoon, I ducked into a used bookstore. Dust floating in warm light. Shelves that lean and stories that don't mind. I pulled down a slim book of poems, stopped at a line that reached out and held me by the sleeve. People show kindness by giving up a chair, but owning your chair says you're ready to live. It touched something deep and quiet in me. That night, I took a card from my case, set it in the center of my desk, where the lamp makes a pool of gold. Stone Hospitality, LLC owner. Emily Stone. This tiny rectangle holds 1,000 midnights and 100 small braveries. It holds the times my name went unspoken, the days my place got erased. And still here I am. I whispered, hardly more than breath. I don't need to sit beside anyone to be whole. I'm seated, solid, at the center of myself. A few days later, I had lunch with a new hire. We turned it into a one-on-one. She was in her mid-20s. Bright. Careful. Trying hard not to show the tremble in her hands. Were you always this confident? She asked me, words careful but direct. From the start? I laughed a little, more surprised than anything. Did I come off that way? Yes, she said. I mean, it feels like you know your place. At work. In your life. I still lose track of where I belong. In meetings. With friends. I can't always tell which seat is mine. Her words felt like looking in a mirror that showed me 10 years ago. Truth? I said. I spent a long time thinking I didn't have a place. No matter who I stood beside, I felt like I was floating a few inches off the ground. Really? she said. You? Me, I said. Which is why I think something I didn't used to think. She leaned in, waiting, like a person warming her hands. A place isn't something someone gives you, I said. It's something you grow. Grow, she echoed, tasting the word. I nodded. That morning, before we met, I had stood at my mailbox with the divorce decree in my hand and felt no tears, only a steady breath. Only that clear, clean scent of air that hadn't been mine to breathe before. Later, before dawn, I had drafted an email to the woman I will be. No greeting, no send, just a promise made in my own voice. Just the weight of my own name in my hand. In between those two moments, life kept making its small, honest sounds. At the laundromat, machines whirred. At the office, good morning, rolled over desks and through the doorway. In the mountains, floors creaked and ceilings held stories. At a cafe counter, a stranger was kind. On my stoop, a box waited with a ribbon and a letter that could not put me back. Where I'd been. On my piano, a song I once played with my mother rose again and didn't break me. On the sidewalk, a child staked a claim to a chair that would hold her for years. In a bookstore, a line lifted a truth I knew but had not said. And at my desk, in the lamplight, a card with my name stayed exactly where it belonged. I don't have to erase the past to move forward. I don't have to forgive to be free. I can remember. I can let go. Both can be true at once. I can take my own seat. I can keep my own name. I can build the place where I stand. So when the new hire looked at me with hope in her face and fear at the edges, I didn't give her a map. I gave her a seed. Grow it, I said. Water it a little every day. Protect it from people who want to pull it up by the roots to check if it's thriving. Let it take the shape that fits you. She smiled. Something in her shoulders lowered. When she left, I opened my card case, touched the edges of the last few cards. I thought about who I'd hand them to. A partner who says my first name when it matters. A vendor who treats our team with care. A young woman who walks into a room and isn't sure where to sit. Maybe the next card would go to the person I'm still becoming. The me who doesn't whisper anymore. The me who walks in, looks around and knows. That seat. That name. That life. Mine. At first, the soil is hard. Nothing sprouts. You water a little every day anyway, and one day, someone shows up and says, I like it here. I was the one who said that out loud. In our little office kitchen after a morning run-through, while a younger teammate leaned on the counter with her hands wrapped around a mug. She didn't answer right away. She just nodded. Then, finally, in a small voice she said, then I'll try to grow my own place. Those words soaked straight into my chest. That evening, on my way home from checking in on our new space, I cut through the park by the water. The air had that loose, late-day feel. I took my favorite bench, under the same tree where I sit when I need a minute that belongs to me. I opened my sketchbook. I drew a line. Lately, I've taken to sketching rooms. I call it space sketches in my head. Not a plan. Not a blueprint. Just a way to calm my mind. A way to see what could be. Every time I pull a line across a blank page, I feel my own edges come back into focus. That night, the page stayed blank a while. Then I closed the sketchbook and opened the Notes app on my phone. I typed a heading without thinking too hard. To the me from 10 years ago. You might feel like you don't have a place right now. You might be afraid. Really afraid of never being understood, never being picked, never being chosen for the big table or the small. Listen, you don't have to be chosen. You will learn to choose yourself. You don't have to forget what hurt you. But you don't have to turn the hurt into the measure of your worth. Your name is yours to say, even if no one calls it out, even if no one comes looking. If you keep standing right where you are, one day you will be able to say, this is my place, and mean it. When I finished, I set the phone in my lap and took a long breath. If no one else ever reads this, that's fine, I thought. These words are a letter to me. That night, I went to my favorite spot in my city and took myself to dinner. It had been a while. Two-top near the window. Cloth napkin. Silverware with some weight to it. Around me, couples and families filled tables with the sound of people who belonged to each other. I sat by myself and felt a quiet kind of full. One appetizer, one soup, one main, one dessert. Not for anyone's ease but mine. An hour of hosting myself. Not lonely. I told myself that as the spoon rested on the saucer. Not at all. This is the stillness that comes with being able to stand on your own 2 feet. On my way out, the owner chef came by to say hello. "You always seem so at ease when you're here," he said. "It makes us glad to have you." "And I'm grateful for this room," I said. "The way it holds a person who comes alone until she doesn't feel alone anymore." He smiled and nodded. "Come whenever. We'll always keep a place ready for you." A place? For me. Once I asked for that from a family and never got it. I used to want someone to point and say, "This is your chair. You belong at this table." That was my old dream. Now I understand. That chair isn't something somebody else hands you. It's the one you go sit in quietly because you decided you belong there. Spring moved over Charleston with a soft hand. It was the end of March. Our 5th location was about to host its preview night, and my team and I were making the last passes, little fixes, small touches, all the things no one sees and everyone feels. We had a name for the place: the Hideaway. To most people, it meant what it sounded like: a small, warm place off the main path. But for me, it held a second meaning: a place where the people no one ever found can find themselves again. The room wasn't flashy. Warm wood, soft light, a quiet tone you feel in your shoulders. We kept the seat count small on purpose, just a handful of tables. We worked hard on the placement, where the air moves, where a shy person might feel held, where someone could exhale without explaining a thing. In the center, we left one table where anyone could be seen. We set it with one extra chair. That was the seat I could never get, once upon a time. The one everyone could see. The one you take when you finally let yourself be visible. One of my staff asked, "Boss, why the extra chair at this one table?" "So someone can sit there and feel, I finally got to take my seat," I said. That chair is for the uninvited. On opening night, I stayed in the back. I moved quietly between kitchen and host stand, not to be invisible, but to see. A young woman came through the door alone. She looked around once, steady. She walked straight to the central table and sat in the extra chair. She didn't apologize. She didn't ask if it was okay. She looked at the menu. She chose. When the server arrived, she ordered in her own voice. Something warm rose up and settled in me. "Yes, you're allowed to be here." Just like that. A few days later, a regional magazine sent a writer to ask about the new place. Why now? She wanted to know. Why this room? "There was a time," I said, "when I didn't have a seat even at my own family's table. Later, when I could say my name without flinching, I decided I'd build a seat with my own hands." "Is this restaurant your salvation?" she asked. "No," I said, smiling. "It's my proof. I don't need to stand next to anyone to be centered in my own life. This is the proof." One night, an older regular, someone who has taken a shine to our corner of the world, spoke softly as she folded her napkin. "When I come here, I remember my name," she said. "No one said it for such a long time that I almost forgot I had one." Her words shook something tender in me. A name isn't just a thing you wait to hear. It's also something you can say for yourself, a bridge you rebuild, one syllable at a time. On my day off, I drove out by myself to Sullivan's Island. I found a small cafe near the water. I took a seat by a window where the light makes everything plain. I opened my notebook and made a simple list. Things I've learned lately, things worth keeping where I can see them. Risk. Getting hurt when you aren't called by name is normal, but it doesn't lower your worth. You don't have to explain every part of you to prove you exist. You are here, whether you narrate it or not. Sometimes leaving gently is part of being strong. A name isn't something you wait to be given back. It's something you take back for yourself. Being by yourself and being lonely are not the same thing. When I closed the notebook, I pulled a postcard from my bag. On the front, a photo of marsh grass and a thin line of sea. On the back, I wrote to someone down the road. On the nights no one calls you by your name, when you whisper that name to yourself just once, right there in the dark, know this: the world is opening its door a little wider for you in that moment. I hoped that card would land where it needed to. Even if it never did, the writing of it counted. Back home, I lifted the lid on my old piano. My fingers aren't what they used to be. I missed notes. The sound was still there. Quiet. True enough for me. When I finished, I said without thinking, "Even if no one claps, I love this sound." Once, I craved applause like air. Tonight, I gave myself something better. A small, steady yes. One evening, after a media interview, I turned a corner downtown and came face to face with my ex-husband. We both paused. We looked at each other, an honest second. He dipped his head. I returned the nod. We kept walking, no words. No need. My heart held steady. There was nothing left to retrieve. I have already chosen again, and again, and again. Enough. Late that week, I sat at my desk and opened my laptop. A post slid past in my feed from one of our followers. Tonight, at a family dinner, someone said I was not one of us. I cried all the way home. Then I watched your video and thought, I can build my own seat. I'm going to try. Thank you. My eyes went wet. Not with the old hurt, with something else. The feel of a real connection. The texture of a hand you can't see, reaching back. So let me say this now, to anyone who needs it. If tonight your name goes unsaid, if you feel like every room has a closed door with your name on the wrong side, don't forget, you are here even if no one beckons. Whether someone sits beside you or not has nothing to do with your worth. Say the name. No one said. In your own voice. Right now. Quiet if you need. Firm if you can. My name is Emily Stone. At first, the soil is hard. Nothing grows. You water anyway. One day, someone comes through your door and says, I like it here. Sometimes that someone is you. The day before our official opening, we ran through a final checklist at the Hideaway. One more polish on the bar. One last sweep under the banquette. I stood in the middle of the room and looked at the extra chair. The chair for the person who had not been invited. The chair for the brave, the tired, the ones who have spent too many meals pretending they were fine. One of my servers, a young woman named Grace, the same one from our kitchen top, stopped at my shoulder. I've been thinking about what you said, she whispered, about watering what's mine. I'm going to do it. I know, I said. I can see it. She smiled. Something in her settled. The way a plant sits deeper in its pot when its roots take hold. That first full night, the room filled in slow, easy waves. A man in a blue blazer who always eats alone on Thursdays took his usual corner. A couple who didn't have anything left to prove to each other shared the lamb. And the last spoonful of dessert. A small group of women in their 60s leaned in and laughed, the kind of laughter that makes other people want to find their table and pull up a chair just to listen. And the extra chair? A young man with careful eyes sat there at 8, ordered a glass of wine, and took out a paperback that looked like it had been read to pieces. He ate the roast chicken and wiped the plate with a heel of bread. He closed his book when the pie came. He looked up once in a while, took in the room, and let the room take him in. After service, a magazine writer emailed, I keep thinking about that central table, she said. I think I finally understand what you built. I typed back, it's simple. I wanted to make a place where you can take your seat even when no one has called your name. On a Sunday, near dusk, I drove out to the water again. Palm fronds clicked. The sky turned that soft, peachy color Charleston wears before it goes to sleep. I pulled over and watched the last light fold itself into the edges of the day. I said my name, not loud, just enough for the air around me to catch it and hold it a second. Emily Stone. Sometimes that is the whole work. To say your own name, to claim your own chair, to build the room your life needs, plank by plank, plate by plate, word by word. And if the room feels empty at first, if the soil is stubborn, if the seed looks like nothing, water it. A little each day. One night, it will be full. And you will look around the room you made and think, this is mine. This is me. This is home. If no one calls you, call yourself. If no one sets a place, set your own. If no one says your name, say it. Then sit. Eat. Rest. Your seat is waiting. Your name is welcome here. The day they sat me away from the family table, I learned what it feels like to be set aside. Today, I hold a table of my own. No applause, no champagne toast, no big speech. Still, I am here. Solid. Breathing. Present in my own name. And the chair beside me at the hideaway. Right at the table in the center, we keep it open on purpose. It's for you. For the one who, tonight, feels like there isn't a place with your name on it. For the one who has been told to stand back, to sit out, to wait quietly while the plates pass by. If that's you, come in. Take that seat. You don't have to explain a thing. You don't have to earn your place. You can rest your hands. You can let your shoulders drop. You can say your name out loud or keep it safe in your chest until you're ready. Because there is room here. Because you are here. Because this chair stays open for as long as it takes, for the moment you choose. Yourself and sit.